Introducing the hosts of Wrestling with Freddie, Jeff Dye, and Freddie Prinze Jr.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Wrestling with Freddie, now Wrestling with Friends. And this week is a very special episode where we take questions from you, the people, the People's Republic of Wrestling with Friends. Mr. Jeff, how are you, sir?
I'm feeling good, buddy. I'm excited to talk to the people, the people that get to listen to us talk about wrestling.
Well, I'm going to summon my inner Vince McMahon, and I'm going to tell you, I'm not excited to speak to the people. Screw the people. What I think is the only thing that matters. Their opinions are crap. Their questions suck, and I don't have to answer any of them.
We got to hear him out. We got to hear him out, Vince.
All right, fine. God damn it. We'll listen to a couple. Our awesome producer, United States veteran, Alexis Cardoza. We call him Big Al. We've never called you Big Al. Alex is gonna read your questions, and we're gonna get right into him as soon as he's ready, which is right friggin' now.
All right, we're gonna start off with a couple of Instagram questions that came in, and the first one's coming in from Chels Lee 89. She asks, if AEW or WWE offered you a creative job right now, would you take it?
That's a good question. I mean, I'll start if you don't mind, Jeff.
Go ahead. Yeah, they're asking you.
Yeah, but I think it'd be cool to get your take too. I think stand-up comics are good storytellers, and that's what wrestling needs. I think it would depend on the position and the amount of time. And here's why. One, I'm trying to get my own thing going. So legally, I wouldn't be allowed to if I sign a contract. But let's just take that off the table and say everyone hated my idea and I can't make it. What would I have to do? I'm back in acting, first of all. I'm making a movie in February. I'm making another one this summer. So that it would have to be a friendly schedule. So as far as the type of job, maybe if it was like, Freddie, we're going to give you 3 wrestlers that we don't really know, we don't have a story for, and we're not focused on them. Can you come up with something that if they challenged me, right? Like, you try to get them over, since you tell us on your podcast every week, we can't, and we suck. Show us how much you don't suck. If it was that kind of a thing, and I could only work with those 3, and it was like we were doing Zooms, and maybe there were a couple shows I would go to and things like that, then hell yeah. Hell yeah, I would. I would take that challenge in a second. I would love trying to take the person that no one believes in and making the people believe in them and then shoving it in the company's face. I mean, that was the whole Jeff Hardy thing. That was the whole motivation behind that, was no one believed in him, and Freebird loved him. And he's like, Freddie, you got to help me out here. You got to get a story for Jeff Hardy. And it was like, and everybody was like, yeah, good luck. And so I wrote it up and I presented it to this guy, Chris DeJoseph, and he was like, dude, that's actually pretty good. And I was like, all right, cool, let's pitch it. And we did. And Vince kept going for it and going for it and going for it until he said, nobody touches Jeff until Armageddon. And that's when we knew that Jeff was going to get the title match, right? So if it was in that regards with WWE, where like, here's some NXT talent that we're bringing up, or here's like 3 wrestlers that aren't getting any TV time, or here's Mustafa Ali, make him not lose, right? Like, those would be challenges. I wouldn't just be like, yeah, I want to work with Bray, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn. Like, those guys don't need any help. Like, they can do everything on their own. As far as AEW goes, one, I don't think so, because Tony Khan isn't looking for help, right? But let's say he was, and we'll play the hypothetical, that would be a more full-time thing. That wouldn't be just give me 3 wrestlers. I would say, hey, you tell me who you want to wrestle at your pay-per-view, and let me tell your fans why they're going to fight. That would have to be the scenario, right? Like, okay, you book it, because clearly you don't want to give that position up, but let me be the reason why. Let me be your head writer. Let me write the reasons why these guys hate each other. Let me be the reason why Saraya is going to take the title from Jamie Hayter. Let me give you 3 stories and you pick which one, right? that would be a much different situation because WWE is very streamlined. They have a writer's room. Those writers would hate me the same way they hated me the first time I worked there. And trust me, they did. I had to earn their respect and earn just their like. And probably not all of them liked me by the time I left. Probably some of them, were like, I never liked him. Haha. But AEW is different because they don't have that. There are wrestlers there that are doing all their own thing. Like, it's just like, yo, I'm writing my promo. I'm doing my own thing. So I would have to go in there and be like, here's what I think. I can't say the term that WWE would use, but say, put your fingerprints on it. They use a much more politically incorrect term in the wrestling business. But I'd say, change whatever you want to change, find the words that fit right for you. But here's the promo that I'm thinking about, and then help shape and guide the changes they make that I vehemently disagree with, right? Because it's still, at the end of the day, it has to be an environment that's conducive to success. I could write a monologue like nobody's business, okay? But if you don't click with it, it's gonna suck. And that makes you suck, right? So I'm not going in there going, look how great this is. It's me going, look, I think I have a great idea here, but you have to make it yours. So they would be two very different scenarios. WWE would have to be a limited thing. Here's wrestlers XYZ, and AEW would have to be, let me run the show. And even if it was just like, hey, give me Rampage instead of Dynamite and let me show you what I can do. And if I can bring those numbers up and bring and make people care about the stories on that show, then let's start bleeding those into Dynamite and seeing what we could do. So they'd be two very different scenarios. That said, I don't think Tony Khan would ever go for that. And I really am like, it's not just like table talk. I really am trying to get my own federation thing going. I'm pretty far down the line with a couple different people, and I'm just kind of waiting for some things to happen. And I'm working again. So it's tricky. But yeah, I would if certain things didn't already exist. What about you, Jeff? Would you ever take a call? And if so, would you take a job if offered to you?
What's the definition of a creative job at wrestling? What's the definition?
You would be told, we want Sami Zayn and the Usos to break up, and we want Sami Zayn to wrestle Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. Will you come in and write? And
I wouldn't do the job.
Write stories.
I wouldn't take the job. Nope.
What if it was smaller wrestlers?
Nope. Still wouldn't care. I don't. I'm in no. This is how Jeff Dye operates. I don't care about making Sami Zayn or any other wrestler a star. Like, if they wanted me to be an announcer, I would love to do that. I would take that job in a second. If they want to make me a manager of a wrestler, I'm all in on for that. But just sitting somewhere and making other people sound funny on my jokes or making someone else sound interesting on my monologues, like, I don't have any interest in doing that.
Jeff I wouldn't like manager.
Yeah, I would
now
love
the
to
manager thing would be tricky because you're so friggin' tall. You would make a lot of the talent seem less formidable, right? But if you repped like a women's stable, that would be sick.
That'd be fun.
if you were on commentary, that would be pretty dope.
Also, if
you don't have to be the color guy, you could literally be the main announcer. And you don't have to know the name of every move.
If I became a manager for like a female wrestler, like I would just take HGH, try to get jacked too. So like in case something happens, I try to break it up. But hey, nobody, because I could be a big ass dude in the women's division. You know what I'm saying? So
you take a bunch of HGH, just walking in on peptides, steroids, and HGH.
That manager's slowly getting larger, like an NBA referee. They used to just be dorks, and now they're all jacked. Like I would just every week.
On steroids.
Yeah, because I'm not going to be looking like these bodybuilders in the men's wrestling, but if I'm a female wrestler manager, they'd be like, oh, hey, he's pretty big, actually. That's a big guy.
Dude, I could see you as a manager. I could big time see you as a commentator. I think fun. You would, you would kill
I would take that job, but I wouldn't take a writing job or I wouldn't take any of that other stuff just because I just don't think I'd be good at it either. I don't really. I like being a fan of wrestling. I don't think getting in there and trying to put my stink on it in the writers' room would be. Because you guys have listened to me enough on this podcast, and Freddie, you've listened to me enough in regular life that I like terrible stuff in wrestling. Like my taste for wrestling is like they do hokey shit, and I go, I love that. Like I love
you like
really
the casket
weird
match.
stuff.
You love that stuff.
Yeah, I like the brawl for all. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't trust me in a writer's room. I'm gonna come up with some terrible ideas.
Next question, sir.
This next question is for Jeff Dye. Having dated a wrestler, how did that change your perspective of the business? And this question is coming from one Mikey Mike on Instagram.
It didn't really change my perspective on wrestling at all. I dated Becky Lynch, if people are curious, and she's awesome. The only thing it actually didn't change my perspective at all. I will say that this is, I don't know if hope I'm not sharing too much here, but like they would take it really personal. Like when her and Charlotte were like feuding, like I would listen to her be like, I can't believe Charlotte's actually getting mad at me. And like, she would like, I was like, you guys do know this is a storyline, right? Like you guys don't have to actually be upset with each other for this to work. But I think it's like comedy or show business, or maybe even, if you work at a warehouse or you work at Target or you work at Best Buy, you get competitive, like, right? You want the promotion or you want the raise or you want some position. And so that's just part of it for them. So it's like Charlotte had a difficult time that Becky was starting to become the face of the female wrestling thing. And so I did, I guess it wasn't surprising and didn't change my perspective, but it was interesting to see how much they genuinely like, you know, when you're struggling on the roster, like it affects their personal life. Like their attitude gets fight, and as they rise, they go, yeah. Like I mean, it's a little more real than I thought it was, for sure.
Now you don't have to answer this question, but I'm just going to throw something out there. I did notice when you and Miss Lynch were dating that her Twitter game was much stronger than when you broke up. You didn't have anything to do with some of those sweet tweets, did you?
Nope. That
you
was
don't
all
have
Becky.
to answer?
Becky she's very, very funny, and she's very, very, like very witty with that stuff. She was very good about keeping her Twitter persona, like her thing. That's all Becky.
Next question, sir.
This one's coming in from Sierra Taylor Hodge on Instagram. If you both became an in-ring tag team, what would your name be?
Oh, I already know mine.
What?
Jeff Jackpot Dye, and every single one of my moves would have like some sort of money thing to it, you know, like, oh, he did the bank deposit, you know, like just some sort of like money related stuff. Because I think Jackpot's great. It's about being lucky. It's about winning. It's about it's just a perfect kind of like name, Jeff Jackpot Dye.
Okay, so Josh Wolf and I used to do this years ago on our old podcast, and his character's name was the producer, and I was Alexander Slamilton, and all my moves were kind of like yours. Like I had the Bahamian banknote, and like I think he's on the $5 bill or the 10, whichever bill he's on. It was the $5 thrill. Like I had all these. Like, it's the same kind of vibe, but I wouldn't be able to bring that persona into the ring. So I would have to be your luchador tag partner.
Oh, it'd be so dope.
And my name from birth has always been, in my lucha persona, is El Güey, the dude.
The dude.
And so we would have to be the dude and the jackpot, like the butcher and the blade. And I would speak Spanish like in Mark Hamill's Joker accent. That would have to be like, so it wouldn't be regular Spanish. It'd be like, ¿Cómo está usted? And it would have to be very much like that so that no one would ever know it was me. And then the reveal would be, oh my God, it's the guy from fucking Scooby-Doo. Holy shit, he's a luchador. Yeah, and eventually, and you would be the one that betrays me, right? You'd take off the mask. I'd be like, no, oh no. They'd be like, oh my God, that's Freddie Prinze Jr. Oh my God, that's the guy from Scooby-Doo. He's got a lot of gray hair. Oh my God. They'd Freddie, all freak out.
I would never betray you, and I would definitely never demask a luchador. That would be some of our nemesis. I would never do that to you.
But that would get you over as a heel,
no way,
bro.
Dude. Disrespectful.
No,
you could take the lucha mask off. Never.
I love you. You're a good man. You're a good man, Jeff Dye.
What would you guys call each other then? your entire
I
team.
don't know.
The Joker and the Joker and the jackpot.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, baby. A bad Joker accent and jackpot Jeff Dye. Or Jeff Jackpot Dye.
Hey, let's start it up. Let's call AEW. Say, listen, we got a thing. We got to start.
Let's call the Dubs, man. AEW. Yeah, I really got to start.
We got to get to the gym yesterday if we're gonna do this.
Next question, sir.
This one's coming via Twitter from Curious Dabbler. Was Vincent Kennedy McMahon stepping down the biggest single event in pro wrestling in the last 5 years?
In the last 5 years, yes.
Yeah, in the last 50 years. I mean, hell, I guess he hasn't been doing it 50 years, but yeah, I mean, Vince, you didn't know, but if you weren't a fan of pro wrestling, the only thing you associated to pro wrestling was Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon. Like, you would know those names, right? Like, people in Hollywood who shit all over wrestling and don't know anything about it. When I would say, oh, I worked for Vince McMahon for a couple of years, they'd be like, why'd you quit acting for it? I was like, I went and worked for Vince McMahon. They'd be like, oh, pro wrestling? And they would know right away. They would know not a single other thing about pro wrestling and crap all over and go, oh, it's fake. I'd be like, yeah, so is every movie you produced, Jagoff. I hate when people say it's so stupid. I'm like, yeah, every television show, including reality TV, is friggin' fake.
Yeah.
Every single one.
Game of Thrones, not real.
You don't think they've held a plane on the Amazing Race a few times to make sure the team they wanted to win didn't get eliminated? Like, exactly. that shit happens, bro. Like, it's all fake. So yeah, him stepping down, and especially the way he stepped down, had it been gracefully and just been like, thank you very much, it's time for me to retire and hand this to my family, it still probably would have been the biggest story. But anytime there's like scandalous stuff that you know, gossip sites and National Enquirer type stuff want to talk about, and it's finally real instead of like made up stuff, then it's going to be, you know, 10 times as big. So for sure, the big since he started the WWF, that's the single biggest event in wrestling. And that's too bad, because it should be like the first WrestleMania or something like that. But unfortunately, it's, you know, he didn't make smart life choices.
And also, to everyone I've ever talked to who knows wrestling, I've never worked for anybody in wrestling, but like every wrestler I know, every person I know that's written for them, produced, whatever, they all said that Vince was the final say. Like, he was just, no matter what, if he didn't like it, it did. So to have one guy be the thing that everything has to go through, he had his hands in everything. So for just to get rid of the guy who has been the final say for that long, it has to be the biggest thing. To let Triple H finally get to, you know, call the shots and delegate responsibilities, say, okay, you can do this and you can do this. So we'll bring Shawn Michaels into this, and Finley will decide that. Like, that's a huge thing for wrestling.
Shout out Fit Finley.
All right, this next one's coming in from Shashirali 2001. Which rivalry?
Shashirali.
Yeah. Which rivalry would you really like to see in terms of storytelling and match quality? Must be a WWE feud.
All right, I know, first of all, which one I never want to see again, and that's Randy Orton versus John Cena, because they did it for 2 years straight. And it was boring after 2 months. Which WWE rivalry? Okay. You have to be kind of a new school and hardcore fan to go into this one for me. But if you watched NXT when it was good and you saw Sami Zayn's path to the world championship and you saw Kevin Owens' entrance into NXT and the beginning of these best friends rivalry, it started perfectly and beautifully. He hugs his best friend and then he gives him a power bomb on the apron of the ring and like breaks Sammy's back. And it's like, yeah, congratulations, champ. And they've been best friends and they've been mortal enemies ever since, going back and forth to the point where Kevin, the last time they spoke, said, I don't even want to know you anymore. I don't want to wrestle you. I don't want to see you. I think eventually they're going to become friends again. and then fall apart again. So I'm not saying it's the greatest of all time, because that's reserved for people like, Undertaker and Shawn Michaels and people of that caliber. And these two men haven't had enough time in the company to establish that. But I will tell you this, I'm damn well going to watch it over the next 10 years and see where this rivalry goes, between the friendship and rivalry, and watch where it goes. Because I love both those guys, because they can both wrestle at a 10, and they can both talk on a 10, and they can both tell a story at a 10. So it may not be the greatest yet, but I think it has the potential to, and it's the one that I'm most excited to watch. What say you, Jeff?
Well, if I could just do like fantasy, like there's anything in the world, I'd love to see Undertaker and Kane again. That was super fun. Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart was huge.
Oh.
The foundation of my wrestling love was Macho Man and Hulk Hogan. I remember just being like, no, I love these two. Why is this happening?
So temptation in your eyes. I saw it in your eyes. It was over a woman.
Good.
It was over a woman.
Good. And then obviously Stone Cold versus Vince. I don't know if it'll ever get as good as that rivalry. Like, there's just every week I couldn't wait for wrestling to start so I could watch how Vince was going to get his life ruined by Stone Cold. It was just so fun.
That's oddly probably the best one ever, right? Because it was like wish fulfillment. Everyone wants to punch their boss in the face.
It was awesome.
He actually got to.
And also, I learned that it seemed like a story they did a long time ago with a different guy. What was the guy who actually became an actual bounty hunter in real life? The old wrestler?
Dr. D?
Yeah, no, is it Dr. D?
David Schultz? Yeah,
David Schultz. So I have a theory that the
guy who slapped the shit out of John Moffat or whatever that guy's name was.
It ruined his life. But
Fuck that guy.
David Schultz, basically, like, that was Stone Cold. That whole character is with.
Wow, you're right.
Even having the guns, like, he had guns, and they went to his house. They casted him a fake wife and a fake kid that he'd be rude to.
They did that.
It was perfect. But anyways, those would be the ones I'd love to see again, just because they were like magic. I'm not really good. I'm as the older I get a little less patient with the rivalries. Like, Brock versus Roman, I don't want to see it again. It was too much for me. But any of those old ones, I would love to see anything like that or those again if I could choose.
David Schultz slapping the shit out of that reporter is one of my favorite moments in the history of wrestling. Because, like, my whole thing is, like, if I ever was interviewed by that guy, I would just shit on him the whole interview and call him out on his bullshit. Like, why would be my question. Like, you were going after cigarette companies. Why would you go after professional wrestling? Like, everyone's in on the secret, even back then, even the people that didn't want to say it was, everyone knew. So why go out there and just try to expose them like that? Like, who are you helping outside of yourself, right? Like, it's just you trying to get clout by destroying something that people love. I was so glad when he got the shit slapped out of him.
Yeah.
And I was even happier when he hit him the second time. I hated that they paid him off. I hated that he got a settlement. I hope his ears hurt for the rest of his life. Like, screw that guy, man. I think
you go looking for trouble,
John
you find
something.
it.
Yeah, man, screw that guy. I hate that guy.
You can't come in and antagonize him and then cry that, like, something happened. Like, the guy's asking for trouble.
That other New York journalist that tried to, like, get him destroyed during the steroid trials, Mushnick, whatever his name is, screw that guy too, man. I remember Cornette cut a promo on him that was just friggin' gold, like, just an absolute brick of gold. And I was just like, man, I'd love to be in a room with that guy and just slap the shit out of him the way Dr. D did, dude. I hate both those guys. Screw those journalists.
And the story goes that Vince told David Schultz to do that. He knew David Schultz was going to do that. He goes, go show him how real wrestling is. And so, like, he knew David Schultz was going to keep that kayfabe, like it was in that time. Like, you know,
and then fired him for it.
Yeah, and then he gets sent to Japan for a few years. Like, we might get sued for this. It's such a Vince move. But I love Schultz. I love David Schultz.
Yeah, man. Shout out David Schultz. Next question, sir.
All right, so our last question for this episode, and we're going to end on a good one. This one's coming from Daniel Zamorano.
Oh, nice.
Why was the Brawl for All the best thing to happen in pro wrestling?
You know, I like the idea of it. It was an epic failure. It was terrible. But it did stem from a good idea. It did stem from the idea that, like, these guys have been doing choreographed wrestling and lifting weights and eating steroid burgers for the last 30 years. They talking a big game back there. They're talking a big game in the green room. Let's see who's really actually tough if we could put these boxing gloves on and do it. So the idea was let's have Bradshaw put his money where his mouth is. Let's have these guys earn their way to climb the corporate thing. It was a failure. It was a failure, and it was dangerous, and it was reckless, and it was stupid. But I think the idea is good. I think the idea is it stemmed from a good idea, which also is a nice callback to why I wouldn't be a very good creative at wrestling.
Okay. Danielle, I'm so upset with you for sending this question in and giving Jeff this soapbox once again.
Yeah.
It is the single worst moment in professional wrestling. The idea is completely asinine that on the same show where you have choreographed fights, you're going to have a real one just to show that the bigger stars aren't as tough as the lesser stars, which is stupid. I'm going to make who was even in it? I'm going to make the Godfather look tougher than Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like, why would you do that? If Stone Cold Steve Austin's supposed to be the toughest son of a bitch in the business, but he didn't have the guts to join the Brawl for All because he's not like a real man. This idea is horrible. I hated every minute of it. I love the Godfather. I love Too Cold Scorpio. I know he was in it. Remember that old vignette that Too Cold had where he comes up in the limo and the kids are late to school and he's like, you need to get in school. And they're like, are we going to go in the limo? And he's like, no, we're going to step. And then they just do the dance all the way to school.
I've never
it takes
seen
like
that,
6
but
days
that's
to
hilarious.
I'm going to send it to you. It's great. I love Too Cold. He used to do, you know how like Hangman Page does that lariat, that slingshot, buckshot lariat, he calls it, where he does a forward handspring over the top rope and hit you with the clothesline. Too Cold would grab the top rope and do, instead of a forward handspring, he would do a full flip where his feet don't even touch the ground and frog splash you, dude. It was so ahead. His whole moveset was ahead of his time, but Too Cold way under WCW Too Cold, best Too Cold, but he was way ahead of his time, way underrated. And had to be in that stupid Brawl for All. And by the way, I don't even think the origin story that was told on Vice is true at all. I don't think it had anything to do with JBL. I know JBL pretty damn well at this point. I did a show with them on A&E called WWE Rivals, and he's in every episode, and that dude schooled me up on the history of business.
You calling Vince Russo a liar? You're calling Vince Russo a liar?
Yeah, I don't think that that's true at all, and I don't think it would get approved at all. And JBL's not that guy. Like JBL talks about dudes beating the shit out of him all the time. Like every conversation I have with him is like, yeah, you know, freaking Shamrock choked me out in 3 seconds. Like he doesn't care. Like he doesn't have an ego like that. So I don't even know if the origin of it is as honest as people looking at stuff in hindsight. It's like the Shaq documentary that's out right now. And Shaq saying, yeah, I knew this and I knew that. That's why I did this. That's why I did that. I love the Lakers. I love Shaq. A lot of that is bullshit, man. Like that's hindsight and you going, yeah, because A, B, and C happened, I'm going to put my own spin on it to show you why I created that situation. Like
people do that a lot. I hate it.
A lot. They rewrite history because they're the only ones left to tell the stories. So yeah, man. No, I hate your question, Danielle. You're banned from the show forever. I'm going to find out how you listen to the show, and I'm going to do whatever Dana White does to the people that stream his pay-per-views illegally.
You should also know that if you go back to the episode when this was talked about, Freddie told me he hated me. So you're in good company, Danielle. You should know that.
And I still love him. So you can be on the ship with Jeff on his Mexican cruise, and you guys can tell Brawl for All stories. It'll be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your written in questions. We appreciate you guys. We love you. We're going to two-part this because we also have our voicemail messages that we're going to get to in next week's episode of Wrestling with Freddie, Wrestling with Friends. You guys are awesome. You guys gave us a lot of laughs today. Appreciate you guys. Danielle, I don't hate you at all. You're super cool. And I know that you were just doing that to be a jerk, and I like jerks. So way to go. Mr. Jeff, you got anything to say to the people before we leave?
If you're in Cleveland, Ohio, or the greater Ohio area, I will be at Hilarities Comedy Club celebrating the New Year's with you guys. So come on down to that. Come hang with Jeffy if you're around for New Year's.
That's Miz country, bro. That's Miz country. That's Dolph Ziggler country. That's Alexa Bliss country.
We'll get them at the show. Let's try to get them there. LeBron's old stomping grounds.
We wish you guys the happiest New Year ever. Hope you guys party with people you love. I hope you get drunk with people you love. If you smoke pot, I hope you smoke pot with people you love. If you smoke cigarettes, even though I wish you wouldn't, I hope you smoke a cigarette with someone you love. Just don't blow it right in my face. It's disrespectful. This ain't a 1920s mob movie. We'll see everybody next week right here on Wrestling with Freddie. Wrestling with Friends.
Follow us on Instagram, Wrestling with Freddie. Twitter is WWFreddie Pod. Follow us on all the socials so you can submit your questions for the Frederation.
This has been a production of iHeart's My Cultura Podcast Network. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.